Right, all right, all right. Welcome back, everybody. Sports Chat 503, live in the building with my guy, my favorite, Max Torres. What up, buddy?
What's going on, Ryan? How we living? Good to be
Oh,
here.
so good, so good. In the hierarchy of guys who cover the Ducks, again, we're blessed with a lot of really good people, but you, my guy, are the goat of recruiting, and so we'll talk about recruiting a little bit today, and we'll talk also about where we see the Ducks right now, and then where we see kind of the next couple games. First and foremost, though, Max, how the heck are you? You were doing time in Europe this season? That's crazy. When people talk about don't schedule a wedding during a fall, how about don't schedule a fall wedding out of the country?
Yeah, no, I'm great, man. I mean, everything's been real busy this season. With how well the Ducks are doing, and then typically covering 2 high school games a week out here in Southern California, which is a major talent hotbed. Keeps me super busy. But my best friend got married in Italy the week of the UW game, so definitely not a typical fan of fall weddings because it conflicts with football season. But when your day one's getting married, you just got to figure it out. So that was a huge blessing to be able to go out there and celebrate him and his now wife. And just amazing trip. Couldn't have asked for a better trip.
Yeah, what was the weather like? Where'd you go, real quick? We'll spend a minute on this.
Sure. No, we got to go a little bit everywhere. So my girlfriend and I actually got in there a little bit early and flew into Milan, trained over to Venice. Spent like 15 hours there, and then got a little hostel, and then went back to the Milan area, and then over to Lake Como for most of the week. And then we had a long layover in Paris, and we kind of walked the streets of Paris and went to the Eiffel Tower and then Notre Dame. So that was an eventful evening experiencing Paris, but that was the bulk of the trip. Super fun. That was our first time in Europe, so just really special to be able to go out there with her.
And from the Duck perspective, what were you having to do during the Duck game? Talk about that.
Yeah, so there were a couple of commitments that overlapped with this trip. The first one was cornerback Sione Laulea. The second from or the third, I think, from College of San Mateo, #1 junior college prospect in the country. I had a good feeling that one was coming. I had my prediction on that one, so just prepared an article and a graphic before that happened. Even though there was a little bit of smoke on the back end, I was a little worried it might not happen, but it ended up happening, so that was good. And then when I was flying into Paris, Breland committed like right when we took off, so we landed and I had to get my Wi-Fi figured out, send it off. But during the actual Duck game, I was spamming Twitter, refreshing Twitter to kind of see what was happening, and then I had someone back in the States that was texting me kind of play-by-play updates, and we were in a cafe in Paris drinking lattes and having crepes at 1:30 in the morning.
Amazing. Well, hey, man, let's talk about these Ducks. First and foremost, it's always fun to talk about this year's team. For me personally, I'm a guy, we've talked about this for years. I don't get too deep into the recruiting. I kind of let them get here, get to know them a little bit. I'm becoming more interested in recruiting because, of course, guys like you motivate me. But I also, know that guys have changed quite a bit. Now we got transfer portal. Transfer portal is a whole other avenue of the recruiting aspect, kind of. But then I really like to focus on like week to week to week. I'm in it. I had that coach mentality. That player mentality of like, okay, next opponent. But I also like to kind of look big picture. Where do you think the Ducks are at right now compared to what you originally thought at the beginning of the year? Are they on track? Are they on par for kind of where you thought they would be going into this game against Utah?
Yeah, I think in large part they are basically where I expected them to be. And it's funny that you asked that because that was one of the topics that I covered on my show. I think it was last week, just as far as where is Oregon in regard to what we thought they were going to be heading into the year. And I think for the most part, they've, checked those boxes, and they are largely the team that we expected them to be. Their offense is potent, explosive, effective, efficient, any positive adjective that you could use to describe the Ducks, I think would be appropriate. Love what they're doing on the ground. No, Whittington's injury was a bummer, but it's one that they've been able to navigate with, almost flawlessly, I would say. Jordan James has been phenomenal in that 1A, 1B role alongside Bucky Irving. I like what we're seeing from the tight ends. So little bit of shaky play every now and then from the offensive line in terms of some penalties that we've seen popping up recently. But I really like what we're seeing from Will Stein and the Oregon offense. And then defensively, I think it's a little bit more of a mixed bag. I love that we have seen the improved pass rush from Oregon. They only had 18 sacks last year, and I think they're at 25 now. So that's like I think the biggest gripe that people had with the Oregon defense from a year ago, especially with the talent that they had on paper, DJ Johnson, Brandon Dorless, guys like that. But they really revamped this offense primarily through the portal. And then you also have some young guys from the 23 class that are stepping up already as true freshmen. So I think that's been great. The defensive, the linebackers depth has been one of the biggest surprises for me. And I think that's a group that has looked really solid. It's only getting better with Justin Jacobs back now. But I think the secondary, they've kind of had some ebbs and flows, some peaks, some valleys, and they're going to be really important down the stretch for Oregon.
Talk about Justin Jacobs a little bit. He's a guy who talked about how Oregon was the dream school and how he's just so excited to be here. I got to talk with him a little bit after the game, and he was just so excited about being here and getting a first chance to play. Talk a little bit about him. One, his impact on the team, on the defensive side, I think what he can bring, but also from the recruit perspective, what got him to Iowa? If Oregon's the dream school, what gets him to Iowa? And then what gets him over here? I mean, we've heard his story a little bit, and I'm going to try to have him on next summer before the year going into next year, try to explain it a little bit more on when we get the summer chats going. But talk about that from the recruiting perspective, because it feels like now recruiting is like a part two with the transfer portal.
Yeah. So as for what got him to Iowa, I can't speak a whole lot on that because I just didn't know about him too much before he ended up coming to Oregon. But he grew up in Ohio, so just geographically, there's that going for them. Iowa is historically known for having really good defenses, even if it means having almost virtually no offense. I was talking to one of my buddies who's an SC fan, and they don't really have a defense, and Iowa doesn't have an offense. So we were talking about who has a more painful experience as season ticket holders, and I said it was Iowa because at least you have a flashy offense to bring you out in LA. But that's kind of what I know about Justin in terms of just how he got to Iowa. I think it was probably the draw as far as just putting out really solid defenses and solid NFL draft prospects at his position. And then just as far as coming to Oregon, the Ducks knew that they were going to have to inject some talent into the linebacker room, right? You lose Noah Sewell to the NFL, Harrison Taggart, who looked like he was maybe going to be a promising guy, hadn't really worked out. He went to BYU. Jackson LeDuc transfers back home to UNR with Ken Wilson. So that was a group that just lost a lot of guys. So you had a need for some bodies at that position. And I think especially with linebacker, you want to try to lean on some experience, which isn't really something the Ducks had in abundance aside from Jeffrey Bossa. And he's not even a natural linebacker, right? He came to Oregon as a safety. So I think you wanted to get some pieces to kind of retool that position room. And that's exactly what they did. They went to get Justin Jacobs out of Iowa, and he was a guy. I had some conversations with people around the program, and they were really excited about him, just saying, Max, this guy has the potential to make a serious impact at Oregon. We're starting to see it now, albeit it's a little bit delayed. So I think for what he brings to that room, you have athleticism, you have physicality, size. He's like 6'4", 240, 245. So I think he really fits that prototypical linebacker mold that some of the other guys don't really, even though they have put on size, Jamal Hill, Jeffrey Bossa, Devin Jackson. But I think maybe most importantly is he brings some really important veteran leadership and experience to that room. Like we've said, Jeffrey Bossa has been around Oregon, but I think Justin Jacobs is probably not too far-fetched to say he knows the position a little bit better. Yeah. And I think he can definitely step into that role that Noah Sewell was kind of, occupying when he was at Oregon. So I think this is a great addition for Oregon. And I wrote that that his return or joining the Oregon defense kind of comes at the perfect time this week, because this is a pretty brutal stretch that the Ducks are entering in their schedule.
Yeah. Oh, it is, man. And the whole idea of getting, through Utah, is one thing, but to be able to look at the rest of the schedule is pretty rough. I mean, you have these buffer games in between it, right? You've got Cal before USC, you've got Arizona State before Oregon State, but I tend to think Oregon State's going to be a real issue at the end of the year here, man.
Yeah, I feel like we're always talking about the Beavs, or you're always talking about the Beavs when I throw your channel on. But yeah, they're like the most quiet top 15 team in the country. They just keep playing games and winning, and DJU's looking great. So got to be excited about what the Beavs are doing, man.
Enter my what do I call you? Executive producer. The
What's up,
executive
Darby?
producer. Yeah.
What's up, dude? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing? You excited to shoot the game this week?
Of course. It's first time in Utah.
It's gonna be awesome.
Dude,
Yeah.
that environment looks nuts. I really want to go to a game there someday.
For
I'm gonna have to live vicariously through you guys this week.
Well, we'll get plenty of shots for you, my man.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, he's down here getting his suitcase right now,
Yeah.
so it's over there. I'll get it for you in a second.
It's
I'll be
in the
done in a little bit.
crawl space?
Yeah, I'll be done in a bit.
I looked through the crawl space.
All right. So yeah, no, thank you so much. I had to give a quick shout out there to my boy.
Definitely.
But yeah, no, I am talking about the Beavs all the time because I think that game is super important, and this year it becomes even more important. The guy who I work with, who I talk football with every single day, who is an absolute savant when it comes to football. The guy's a legend. Dude, he's like, what if we were both going into this game and you went out and you're in this game and it's possibly for whoever goes to the Pac-12 championship? Even more so if something crazier happens with Washington or SC or anybody else out there. What if you replay the same damn game again? Get him twice. I mean, what? That's, again, it's so out of the bounds of reality at this point, but there is some serious what ifs going on right now.
Yeah, and I feel like it's largely due to the Pac-12's depth and just the really high caliber football that is being played from top to bottom. I mean, even though USC has 2 losses on the year now, they still only have 1 Pac-12 loss. So I think that, right? Yeah. No. Am I totally? Yeah.
Utah,
to Utah.
They lost to Washington State.
No.
You're talking about yeah.
1 loss
USC.
to Notre Dame and 1 loss to Utah. So
Exactly.
Even though everyone's kind of writing them off in the playoff picture, they're still very much alive in the Pac-12 race. So even if Oregon, hypotheticals, there's a million. Even if Oregon beats them when they come up to Eugene next month, I'm going to be there, super stoked. Like they might even run into them again. But I think at this point in the season, it seems like there's some pretty clear-cut contenders at the top. And, I think that's Oregon, Washington, and Utah. And I think we got to probably put Oregon State in there as well.
Yeah. Oh, big time. And I thought that was going to be the case. I'm just so happy that it's playing out that way because, I knew that these were going to be the big ones this year. And, I didn't think anybody was going to go undefeated in the conference, but I did think we were going to have some really strong contenders at a 1-loss team playing each other for a shot at the CFP, which, again, I tend to think the only way you're going to get a CFP option is if you go undefeated out here. But this year, with the depth and the quality of the conference, I mean, Oregon, I never even thought I'd see a day where Oregon could lose a game and be in front of Alabama in the rankings, with Alabama only with 1 loss. I mean, that to me would have never even been the case. I don't even say. So there's some weird stuff going on this year, and I'm really excited about it. What do you think they need to do for this Utah game specifically? Utah is pretty banged up, but yet they still just keep rolling. They, like we were talking about the other night, next man up for them big time, dude. That's their whole mentality. And this is going to be a game that's going to be an absolute barn burner. I think the Ducks have the opportunity to break that streak over there, but no one else has been able to do it.
Yeah, I think really for me, Ryan, I think it starts in the trenches and establishing the run early. Utah has one of the very best run defenses in the country. I think it's 78 yards a game, which is, a huge shout out to what they've been able to do. Morgan Scaley and the rest of that defensive staff. But Oregon has they might even have the best rushing offense in the country. So that's going to be a matchup that I'm going to keep an eye on for sure in this game. And they're going to need to run the ball to establish the physicality and, kind of try to deliver that opening punch if they get the ball first, and just also to set up the rest of their offense. I think that you're going to want to establish the run because it's going to go a long way in just helping you kind of dictate the game, especially from a play calling standpoint. If you're Will Stein, that's kind of football 101. I think we might have been talking about how they were passing to set up the run last week, but now you want to run to set up the pass, something along those lines. So I think that's super important. And then, you got to limit the run as well, because I think this is the best backfield that they'll have faced to this point in the year.
Yeah. Oh, big time. I mean, Utah always surprises the hell out of me with their front line. They're actually their whole defense, right? You can't even just say their front line. Their whole 11. I mean, because they have studs everywhere, and they put guys in the NFL every year. They have a long tradition there of getting their guys, quote unquote, that do it their way, and they're just a hard out, man. They are literally every single time you play them. That's a very difficult team to play, and they've won the Ducks up there on some fluky stuff, right? The year where the guy drops the ball at the 1 yard line, Joe Walker returns it, the Darren Carrington catch in the end zone with one toe down or whatever. I mean, it's been this close, and I think that's what builds this natural rivalry with Utah. And it's funny from my perspective, I also like to kind of break down, different schools, different fan bases, where people have different opinions and whatnot. I go to a lot of games. I see a lot. I talk with a lot of different people. And, one of the things is with this whole Pac-12 debacle, people are hating on anybody who's leaving, right? We all hate USC because we think USC started the whole thing. And everybody already did, for the most part, dislike USC in the conference somewhat anyway, based on their success alone. But Utah and Oregon has created some sort of a little bit of a kinship over time. It feels like the two fan bases, where there was times when it was very contentious, obviously, because both teams were fighting for the same Pac-12 championship. But I think that level of respect, that idea of the way to get respect from a bully is to fight him, And so it's like that idea of like there's that mutual respect between these two teams, which is really cool for this game. But it also sucks because now we finally built the kinship with them, and now we're leaving.
Yeah, it sucks that that's the way this is going. And I mean, we've talked previously about how Utah is really set up to be incredibly competitive in the Big 12 moving forward, especially once they lose Texas and Oklahoma. And one thing I just kind of thought about, Ryan, as you were talking about how this Utah-Oregon matchup has evolved over the years, is this might sound kind of weird, but I'm going to throw it out there. I feel like Utah's almost kind of taken Stanford's place in terms of being that team that's always a thorn in Oregon's side, really physical, good defenses type of a deal. And every time they meet, there's always so much on the line, which has historically been the case with Stanford. So they're definitely not the same teams. I mean, I can't even get a beat on what Stanford's doing now. They're just totally different compared to the David Shaw days now that Troy Taylor's taken over from Sac State. But
it's going to be a completely different deal. And they're going to the ACC. Boy, they're going to – I mean, who can't wait for that? Well, I can't wait for Georgia Tech, Stanford.
Yeah, Stanford fans are going to be like, oh, yeah, man, I'm super stoked heading out to Chapel Hill this weekend for the game. Like, what?
Virginia.
Or going to one of the Carolinas.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and then I can't wait for those teams to come out west and see this amazing atmosphere at the Farm.
Oof, they're going to be
and
getting
their band
off.
is like making fun of the thing. Their mascot's a freaking tree that looks like it came out of the Michael's craft shop. I don't know.
It's a bummer. I think that the Stanford environment on it and atmosphere used to be really solid. Like, I don't know if you went to games. Yeah, like back in the prime time, David Shaw, even when Harbaugh was still there. Like, I grew up going to those games, and it was nice. But now you go there, and it's like they can't even fill the stadium.
No, they like mock it. It's like it's gone a completely different direction now. It's too bad. And Cal also has the diehards. But I've seen Cal at that stadium packed, like fully packed at that big stadium, Cal, the old one. So I've seen some big games at Stanford and Cal, and it's too bad to see where they're at now. But either way, hey, let's go through the chat really quickly here. Sure. Chris 541 says, "You think the Ducks break out the spatula this cycle, and for who?" I don't even know what the spatula is. Am I missing something here?
It's flipping, like flip a pancake, use a spatula.
So they
break out
Oh, because they're pancake artists.
They always call, kind of the period now between now and especially the early signing period, spatula season, because that's when a lot of these programs are going for flips and kind of putting on the full court press to get these guys before, they end up enrolling early and joining the team. So that this is something in particular that Oregon's really kind of heated up for lately with a number of top guys. I saw Nate Frazier last week, the modern day running back. He's probably the top all-purpose back in the country. He's committed to Georgia, and Oregon's still heavily involved there. I'm not sure how great their chances are, but they're certainly going to keep trying. I think the next step is getting him back on campus. That's a guy that Carlos Loughlin loves as a running back, very high on his talent. And a couple other guys that come to mind. I think I might have seen someone in the comments, Gatlin Bear out of Burley, Idaho. He is currently committed to Boise State. There you go. And runs a 10.15 in the 100 meters, has actually beaten Roderick Pleasant in a race before. That's one instance, but that just tells you the kind of speed that we're dealing with here. So he's actually going on a mission after he wraps up high school, so he won't even be eligible until 2026 for his college football. That's when he'll actually arrive at wherever he ends up going. But I mean, we've learned through many, many years that top end speed is incredibly valuable in today's college football. So the Ducks are going to stay in the mix there. You saw a picture of Joe Lorig put out of Oregon's private jet, and it looked like him and Junior Adams went out to go see Gatlin Bear last Friday for his game. And then one other guy I'm going to mention here, I think, Jeremiah McClellan, the Ohio State wide receiver commit, was on campus for the Colorado game, I believe, not too long ago. So that's another guy. But the other one that's a little bit newer popping up here is Aaron Hampton. And he's a 2024 athlete that is committed to Texas out of Dangerfield High School in Texas. And there's some buzz, and I'm hearing, as recently as today, that the Ducks are trying to get him out on campus for a visit. So that's just a couple of guys, but there are so many people that they're going after.
What about this guy here, Jordan Seaton? Shepherd Ducks is asking about.
Yeah, so Jordan Seaton, he's the highest rated uncommitted recruit in the entire country. 5-star offensive tackle out of IMG Academy out in Bradenton, Florida. He was on campus for a visit this past weekend. I actually thought it was an official visit, but it was an unofficial visit. And the reason that's interesting is because that means that they're going to try to get him out again, I would think, for an official visit before he ends up making his college decision. He's an early enrollee, early signing period guy, which means he's going to be going to his school of choice December, January timeline. So they're going to try to get him back out on campus. He got to meet Phil Knight. He loved the family feel that Dan Lanning created. Talked a lot about his relationship when I was interviewing him with Alik Terry, and just the player-coach, player-staff relationship, calling it kind of one of a kind. That's not something that is easy to find at schools nowadays. So Jordan Seaton is, I feel like him, along with Eddie Pierre-Louis also out of Florida. Those are kind of the two top guys that Oregon's going after here, still on the board in 2024.
Nice. And then, sorry about that. My cat is trying to get up on me here, trying to give him something else to go off to. And then, yeah. And then, is there anybody else that you're thinking of that might be on the radar for the Ducks that might be, a flip, or we're talking about for this spatula season?
Sure. I didn't even answer this question completely. I mean, out of 10, I don't know. I think right now, maybe like a 6, I'm going to say. I mean, I'm still trying to get some intel on that one, but Oregon's very much alive in that recruitment. That's just what I'm going to leave it at right now. But for other guys that you got to keep an eye on, I mean, Oregon never stopped recruiting Justin Williams. That's kind of a given. Out of the state of Texas, committed to Georgia, number 1 linebacker in the country. That's a huge guy. And then you also have Elijah Rushing, 5-star edge rusher out of the state of Arizona. He decommitted from Arizona while I was out of town, pretty much like right after the Washington game. So I have him predicted to Oregon. I think that one is probably one that's coming sooner than later. Kind of just been refreshing my feed to see what's going on there. And then Roger Saliapaga out of Orem, Utah. He's a 2024 tight end that I think the Ducks are in a really good spot for after Jackson Ford, another 2024 tight end, backed off his commitment to the Ducks just a couple weeks ago.
Then we got here Arian Hampton.
Aaron Hampton. Yeah, that's the guy
Aaron
that I
Hampton.
just discussed that they're trying to flip from Texas.
Oh, that's right.
So,
That's right.
Yeah, he's a big one to keep an eye on.
The chat, I get a little confused sometimes in the chat here. Connor is here. He's our resident beef. I don't know if Connor jumps on your channel or not, but Connor's a great one here. He says, every time I hop on talking realignment, we're always talking realignment. Hey, I'm not trying to. You want to talk realignment? Yes, go Spencer McLaughlin. He'll go deep dive on it. I had a theory that if there's a guy who you want as a deserted island guy, Spencer might be the guy. We got time. Spencer, what do you think about this? You're on the deserted island. Spencer, go. Star Wars. What do you think? Whatever. Just give me your thoughts on this topic. What do you think about coconuts? I freaking love the guy. Okay. No Quarter Tie is talking about two of the favorites here. He's a big fan of yours as well. He said the prediction about Notre Dame, you got scoffed at. Did I scoff? I don't even know how I would scoff. But yeah, Notre Dame beating USC. What did you think of that game?
Yeah, I mean that was a crazy one, and really kind of where the wheels started to fall off a little bit with the Trojans this year. I think it really was a statement win for Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman. Out there in South Bend. I want to go to a game there someday, but yeah, I think that showed that even though the playoffs might be out of reach for Notre Dame as well. I think I'm trying to. They have 2 losses too, don't they?
Right, they lost to Louisville.
Yeah,
and then Ohio State early, but
Okay.
State's still probably their best, one of the best losses out there.
Oh yeah, no, they look great. And speaking of Ohio State, just to talk about the USC deal right now a little bit. Josh Pate was spot on talking about how Ryan Day wasn't going to settle for subpar defense. And now that's what's going on with Lincoln Riley right now. The fact, it's just becoming more and more obvious. I feel like that the defense was a major problem last year, and it looks like they haven't done enough to fix it. And that might ultimately be their downfall this year. So I'm super interested in what's going on at USC. I know that, our followers are you have probably broader Pac-12 followers than I do. But our audiences usually like to focus on Oregon, but hey, that matchup's coming up in just a couple of weeks, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows in Hollywood, in LA.
And of course, when that game first came out, we thought it was going to be the last one, and this was before the Ducks went to the Big Ten, and there was a whole bunch of discussion about what this game could be, because could this game be for the national championship and all this other sort of stuff. And, since then, the Ducks now are going to follow the Trojans, which they hate and I love. And then the Trojans have kind of done what a lot of people thought they were going to do, which is once the schedule heats up, this defense is not going to be able to protect them, and they can't outscore everybody. So the fact that they're coming into Hudson, I think, is absolutely tremendous. I think Oregon's going to have everything for them. I think Oregon does everything that they don't want an opponent to do well. They do well. Oregon was going to, I guess you can maybe take the top off a little bit, because Oregon's maybe run defense is maybe just a little bit better. But I think that Oregon's going to do whatever they want to that defense of the Trojans. Running the ball, passing the ball, whatever they got. They're a very efficient offense, and the Trojans are not an efficient defense.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason that I'm feeling more confident in that Oregon USC matchup, in terms of Oregon, coming out on top with that one every week, because it's wild how small or slim the margin of error is in college football, and USC has looked pretty suspect in those losses to Utah and then Notre Dame as well. So I'm not trying to rag on them, but yeah, it's interesting to kind of see how the evolution works. Dan Lanning and Lincoln Riley at their respective schools, the offense versus defensive battle, and then just the head-to-head battles they have on their recruiting trail. You got Dakota Fields flipping from USC to Oregon right after Oregon followed USC to the Big Ten, and he told me that was the green light. So it's there's so many storylines out there, and Oregon and USC, we thought it was going to be for the last time. It's going to be potentially for the last time in the Pac-12 unless they meet up again in the title game. But that'll definitely be a fun one out in Eugene.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be great. Derek, my guy, he says, Max, do you think the recruits in the state of Oregon get underrated or in the recruiting sites, or is it really that bad? Well, historically, there has not been many recruits in the state of Oregon. Historically, we have like under 10 every single year. Now, there's been a little bit more as of late. People are moving into the state. But I remember back in the day where there was maybe under 5 D1 recruits in the entire state of Oregon. There's been some good players out of the state of Oregon, don't get me wrong. But I mean, look at a guy like Jordan Poyer from like Astoria High School, and he's in his like 8th or 10th year in the NFL. The guy's still making plays, man.
Yeah.
Didn't go to Oregon. He was an Oregon State guy, but he's from little Astoria,
Yeah, I think that recruits I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I think sometimes they are underrated. And they end up, kind of exceeding expectations at their school of choice, whether it is Oregon or Oregon State or maybe even somewhere outside the Western footprint. I think part of it kind of starts with, just a fact is that the caliber of football in Oregon doesn't match a lot of these, and the competition, I should say, doesn't match, the heavyweights right out here in California, my way, or Texas, Florida, pick your state in the South. It's like a religion out there. So they just kind of naturally have like some serious talent out there, and then Oregon kind of just gets swept under the rug. But that said, I think that, Oregon has made it a priority to take those in-state guys that they think are capable of helping them. Just looking at this year in 2024, this cycle, they had 3 guys from in-state: AJ Pugliano, the tight end out of North Medford; Devin Brooks out of Clackamas, he's an offensive lineman; and Trent Ferguson out of West Salem, the massive 6'7", 6'8", 300-pound offensive tackle who just got started playing football, but the Oregon coaches love his upside, is kind of what I'm hearing. So I think that they are a little bit underrated, but at the same time, they're just kind of held to a different standard, I guess, compared to the rest of the country and some of these other states. So it is kind of really that bad, but I'm not trying to like slam on the state. I'm just saying it's they're not known for putting out as many caliber quality college guys. But I know one guy from this year that is getting a lot of praise is Jaden Fortier, tight end out of Tualatin. He's committed to Arizona State, but I feel like on all the Oregon high school accounts that I follow, I feel like I'm always hearing that dude's name. So that's kind of a long answer.
Yeah, well, and again, Derek says here we produce QBs in Oregon, and they do. And I think there is talent out here. It's just that it's a small state to begin with. I mean, when the entire state's basically the size of the Bay Area, I mean, you're not going to get that many players, right? It is what it is. Now, the ideology is that there is good talent, but it's just few and far between. But some of that talent is really good, right? So like you said, it's kind of a mixed bag, and it's just difficult. It's difficult or tough to be able to just kind of make that happen every single year. You don't have that consistency across the board like you do in some of those hotbed of recruiting areas like Texas and California, whatever. What do you think here about targets of Malik Murphy out of Texas, Jaden Daniel out of Kansas? They go to the portal.
Yeah, I've been talking about Malik Murphy out of Texas before, on my podcast and on other shows. But I think it just kind of, you got to see how he really feels in Austin with Quinn Ewers, probably heading to the NFL next year, and then just how invested they are as a program in Arch Manning. It sounds like Arch Manning's going to step in for Ewers this week. Now that Ewers is going to looks like he's missing some time. But I like Malik Murphy. I mean, he was one of the first quarterbacks that I covered when I started covering the camp and combine scene for high school. And man, I mean, he went to the same high school as Dakota Fields, Sarah, and Gardena, and the dude is massive, just absolute cannon of an arm. Does not look like a quarterback. Probably looks like he could play lineman if he wanted to, some backer. But I love Malik Murphy. Haven't really seen what he's done at the college level, but that's one that's been interesting, just looking at the names that are at Texas and kind of where he falls in the pecking order. Jalen Daniels, I think is his name, at Kansas. He's a junior out of Lawndale, California. If that's the right guy, I don't know too much about him. But I did see this comment, and I was actually
which one right here?
The one of the WSU one. I was talking to Scott the other day, my guy Scott Bolt, and he was like, "What do we think about Cameron Ward at Oregon if the Ducks go to the portal?" But he did transfer from Incarnate Word, so I'm not sure how that would work since you only have immediate eligibility after your first transfer. But Cam Ward at Oregon, that could be interesting.
I wonder where he is in his graduate, how close he is to graduate.
I'm going to look it up.
Well, I think he's a junior because I think he just did the 1 year at Incarnate Word, and then he had last year. It would have been sophomore.
He's a junior, yeah.
Yeah, so technically, a lot of these guys are graduating as juniors. Now, I don't know what his classes look like or whatever his deal is, but that could be an option if he's playing right away as a graduate transfer. I was talking about that as well with some guys about the idea of what does this look like for Washington State and Oregon State if it does go the way that we think it's going to go and go to the Mountain West. Is there a mass exodus from those schools? And if there is there a potential for some of those schools or some of those kids to go to Oregon?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of along the lines that I was thinking of with what I was talking about earlier with Ward. As for Oregon State, I don't really know the roster as well. I think I got to do some research on the Beavs. Aiden Childs is someone that comes to mind. I think he's someone that they're really excited about out there in Corvallis. Oregon offered him, after Nico Iamaleava committed to Tennessee, Jaden Rashada committed to Miami initially. I think that was a whole saga of a recruitment, but
Florida,
when they were trying it was Miami, then Florida, then ASU.
Yeah. I just remember Florida was the one that didn't pay the NIL money. Is that right?
I think it was like the checks didn't cash or whatever. That was
it's in the mail.
But yeah, it's coming. Don't worry. But yeah, Childs is a guy that Oregon offered, and I actually saw him at one of the UC report camps that I went to in Oakland. And I also saw him when he played against Nico in the Warren versus Downey annual rivalry game. And that dude can ball, man. He earned Adidas All-American selection. I saw him out in San Antonio when I went to cover that. He's pretty young, though, so I wouldn't think that he's a top option for Oregon if they're looking for quarterbacks in the portal or just guys in the portal. But that's someone who's kind of come across my radar before, when you have some of that overlap with Oregon State and Oregon on the recruiting trail.
Yeah. Well, I do think that there's going to be something to be said about that. I'm not sure exactly what happens. I don't think anybody does, but it is what it is. Let's talk about this Utah game just a little bit. Connor says this Utah will win this game. Everybody's doubting Utah. That sets up very well. And then right after that, he says, albeit Oregon has superior talent, Utah proves year after year they can outcoach teams. But, so what are your thoughts on this? I tend to think that matchups make fights, and Oregon and Utah has been somewhat of two differing styles, it feels like, correct? And over the years, and now it feels like they're actually lining up more aligned with each other. The Cristobal era took Oregon and made it a little bit more of a tougher team, made it a little bit more, resilient in the trenches. Tried to kind of go that route a little bit. And I feel like Dan Lanning's taken it one step further than that and become much more of a traditional football team, a team that can play within the trenches across a variety of different levels of football or styles of football, I should say. Utah being one of those styles that used to give Oregon a lot of fits. I tend to think this is a team that Oregon might match up better with this year with Dan Lanning's differences and how they've adapted on the defensive side.
Yeah, and I think I would agree with that one, Ryan, because I really like how Dan Lanning's gone about constructing this roster. A lot of turnover in this offseason, right? Whether you're looking at the high school guys they brought in or the transfer portal guys they brought in, the guys they lost to the transfer portal. I think that those are obviously some tough decisions that you have to make, but it doesn't really seem like there's any Oregon transfers that are, stealing the headlines or stealing the shows at other schools. Not to say that you're rooting against them by any means, but, you've got to make those calculated decisions. Is this a guy we can afford to lose type of deal? But I think, yeah, to your point, they've really constructed this roster to win and beat you in a number of ways, especially on offense. I think that they're almost as effective, running as they are passing or vice versa. But when it comes to defense, I think that's where there's a little bit more of a gray area. I think I like the depth that they brought in. Really, really important for them. I think the depth is going to show in this game, especially with the physical brand of football that the Utes like to play and how they're leaning on their running backs this year. I think the depth that they have at the linebacker spot and in the trenches, keep rotating in those fresh defensive linemen. I think that's going to be huge and really help them just stay fresh this game. But I think I was talking on a different pod earlier, I think this Oregon team that Dan Lanning has built is more equipped to, excel or flourish in a game like this. That said, Rice Eccles is not an easy place to win. I mean, almost nobody not named Utah wins there. But I think that with a veteran quarterback and Bo Nix, you have one game against Utah, albeit at home, under your belt. That was a win. So you have a little bit better of a feel from year to year. But like we were saying in the comments here, that someone said, they outcoach people, and you can never count Utah out when they have Kyle Whittingham, running the show. And I just think of them as a really dangerous team in terms of if Utah were recruiting on the level that Oregon does, oh my God, that would be an even more dangerous team. But Kyle Whittingham is probably the best coach in the Pac-12. I don't think there's too much of an argument there. Just always a team that does more with less. I don't mean that as a slight. It's actually a huge compliment to be able to do what they have done. And I don't want to say I'm a fan of Utah, but it is kind of hard to root against them because they just have such a cool story. And, they continue to show up. And like we've said, you never want to play them. They're always that team week to week that you don't want to run into.
Absolutely. You can't count them out. They are resilient. They don't beat themselves. They play very traditional football. They're great offensive line, defensive line historically. They have great special teams. They do the little stuff, and they do a lot of stuff that, like, for example, USC doesn't do. USC wants to do the stuff everybody wants to talk about, which is throw the ball deep and have a flashy offense, but they don't want to do the little stuff. Now, USC special teams is good because they have elite special teams athletes, but it's not because it's the team game. I do think that Utah is really good. Jaquindon Jackson, the running back, last week gets 26 carries, and everybody's talking about is Sione Vaki, and he has 9 carries. Barnes ran the ball more than Vaki.
That's terrifying to think of.
That's what I'm saying. And it's like when they needed to get first downs, quarterback ran that ball. And I'm very impressed with what they do and how they do it and how they go about doing it. They didn't panic. They didn't sweat when they were down against USC. USC went right down and did exactly what they should do. And they went right down and got it. And Utah didn't flinch. They went right down, did what they needed to do, got the field goal, got the hell out of there. I loved it.
I think another thing that's interesting with this game, Ryan, is special teams, because I think we haven't. I mean, aside from Camden Lewis's missed kicks, he's not having the greatest stretch right now. But you got to stay confident in him. That's your guy. You got to hang your hat on him and go to battle with him. But he's having a little bit of a rough patch right now. But aside from that, I feel like we haven't really seen Oregon's special teams play too much of a factor. And it was a big factor for USC against Utah. That Zachariah Branch return was nothing short of phenomenal.
Watching and as soon as that happened, I was like, oh no, here we go. Because you thought Utah had it.
You did. I mean, I was watching that kick in the air. I'm like, oh, okay, once I saw he was going to field it, I'm like, okay, he's going to get blown up. Like right when he catches it, like good luck. And then boom, he just takes off. Dude is crazy special. And I think that this could be the perfect time for Oregon's special teams to make a difference, whether that's kick return, punt return, or kickoff or punt block. I just think that this is something that Oregon's, I don't know if I'd say knocking on the door of, but I think it's probably something they'd like to see. I think the special teams have improved from a year ago, but I think they're due for a big play, and you can't set up a better stage than this weekend.
Oh, absolutely, man. I'm ready for it. Mike is first of all, I got to go to Raymond. I love Raymond's tags right here. He says, part of coaching is getting all the big 4 or 5 star recruits.
I mean, it's true. Talent acquisition is massive.
Yeah, dude. Jimmy's and Joe's, man. That's how it goes, bro. Micah, my guy, Micah, dude. What up? Micah time. He says, we beat Utah in 2001. Slander needs to die. Nobody brings up Jalen Red, Micah missing both games. Except for you. It is what it is, man. In years past, you came up against some teams. That team for Oregon kind of just sputtered toward the end a little bit. Utah is always better at the end. I think that says a lot about coaching as well. The better coached team is going to be better at the end. The better taught classroom is going to be stronger toward the end of unit or the test anyway. It's like that's how it's naturally. At least that's how our system is designed to work. And if it works correctly, it is what it is. And he says, I'm not liking the weather for the game. It's supposed to be wet. Well, I just looked up the weather here, and it says it's not.
So did I.
Some cloudy. Am I missing something here?
That's what I
said.
looked up.
They said that it was going to be like that early, but I don't know. I think now it just says. I think it's cold. Cold is maybe what you're saying.
Mostly sunny. 15% chance rain. I guess that was one of the weirdest things that I learned. It's like someone's like, well, 15% chance doesn't mean 15% chance. It means 100% chance for 15% of the area. And I was like, that just messes with my head.
What?
But yeah, have you not heard that before?
So a 15% chance of rain is actually 100% chance of rain, but for only 15% of the region.
I think
or
so.
15% of the time.
It's like the most backward thinking ever. I don't actually know. This is why I'm not a meteorologist.
Sure.
But I do know some meteorologists from my days working in the news industry. So maybe I should see if they can verify that. Because
I studied geography when I was in college. I did take a weather and climate class, but that was as far as I got. But yeah, it seems good. I think it's gonna be cold, especially at night. Holy crap! That's all right. It's Utah. It's supposed to be cold. We're going to the mountains. All right, let's do this thing. What else we got in the chat really quickly? Sean says, "Love to play smart football. Make holes to expose Utah defense." Okay. I mean, to me, I think if Oregon scores early, scores often, and they'll put a lot of pressure on Utah to play a good offensive game, I think that's going to favor Oregon. If Oregon gets into a little bit of a slugfest, even a slow start like they did against Stanford or a slow start against anybody else that they've done, they could be in real trouble because Utah can put it on you and they can stay on you.
And I like that you mentioned Stanford, but I don't know if I agree with the slow start part because they just didn't have the ball. So that's something you got to be aware of, though, because it could impact Oregon and kind of force them to do some different things. They could be put in a situation where it's like, hey, we got to move the ball and we got to move it now. So Utah, with the run game that they have, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to take the air out of the ball, man, and just keep the Oregon offense off the field. I think that's something that we definitely need to talk about. But I think that they're good at explosive plays and, pushing the ball down the field. But I think that's something that we could definitely see pop up is Utah just trying to chew some clock.
Oh, big time. And I think that's their MO anyway. But I think especially against this Oregon team that looks like a more explosive offense than they've played. I mean, even the USC offense, it didn't look that explosive against them. They did what they needed to do when they needed to do it for the most part. But I think Oregon's offense is one of those offenses where it's contain, big breaker over the top. And those are really hard to stop. Those kind of offenses are really hard to stop because as soon as you think they got them done, then they break it on you.
Yeah. No, I mean, you gotta stay ready for anything. Stay frosty in this game against the Utes.
Yeah, what do you think of Dan Lanning going for 4th down in this game or taking the points? You think he'll take the points?
Oh man, that's a $1 million question right there. I mean, the 4th down calls have given him a lot. That he's drawn a lot of criticism for that. I think it's going to be situational. I think in a game like this against Utah, I say you take the points, but if it's later in the game, maybe you want to go for that win and just kind of, you don't want to get into overtime against a team like Utah, I don't think.
God, no.
So I feel like you take the points, but it kind of depends on the situation and where they're at in the game.
Rick says Lanning even called Witt a mentor. Yeah, I think anybody who is in the coaching game at this point is going to call Witt a mentor. These guys get around. These guys go to different whatever you call it, sort of functions that coaches get together at. And there's a lot of camaraderie between a lot of these coaching staff. The biggest thing to me about a good head coach is usually there's consistency in the room. The offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators don't leave, or if they do, they get immediately great offensive coordinators from other schools that want to be on that staff. A lot of the guys that are the lower level staffers, whatever, have got great consistency. They have a lot of family atmosphere there. People know who's in the building. There's not a lot of turnover. I think that's the kind of program that Utah has.
Yeah, I mean, with what he's been able to do, I think that you got to look at him as a mentor. And these guys, these coaches, they run into each other way more often than I think people think. You got coaching conventions and road trips and bowl games. I mean, look at Scott Frost popping up last week in Eugene, and then everyone was kind of making a lot about that. But that just I feel like is a good example that they run into each other all the time. Dan Lanning's a defensive coach, as is Kyle Whittingham. So I think it's only natural that you view him as a mentor, and he's really become the cream of the crop when it comes to Pac-12 coaches.
Absolutely. Chris J541 says pass defense for Utah is their only struggle that he's seen this year. And hopefully Oregon takes it over the top on him a little bit, because I think it's going to be important for them to test this defense. I don't think they can just do it nickel and dime them.
Oh, no, not at all. And they have the guys to do it. I think even though Troy Franklin is the clear-cut number one, I think you still see the ball getting spread around decently. Good to see Tez Johnson get in the end zone last week. I think this is a great game where Oregon could try to feed the tight ends a little bit, hit Utah with some of their own medicine. I was watching the Utah highlights from last year, Utah and Oregon. And I mean, it felt like every other pass that Cam Rising threw was to Dalton Kincaid. So Oregon's got some good tight ends that are really impacting the game. Maybe not so much in the passing game. I was talking with Spencer earlier today on my show about how Casey Kelly was involved with some great blocks on that touchdown run. Yep. Terrence Ferguson, Patrick Herbert looks great. He's getting some love on Get Up from Jeff Saturday. So I think that'd be kind of a cool storyline to see Oregon hit Utah with some of their own medicine and just have like a breakout game from the tight ends. I'm not saying it's likely, but that'd be pretty cool.
No, I actually think it is likely. I think that you're the way that Oregon's offense needs to work, like you said, is historically Oregon wants to run the ball and then pass off the run. I think in this game they're going to probably have to establish the pass to be able to open up the run game. But to establish the pass, there's multiple different types of passing, right? You have your backfield extension of the running game, throw it off to the running back in the flat and let him work. You have tight end dumps. You have screen passes. You have a variety of different pump it deep and the tight end sitting in the flat wide open, just behind or in between the linebackers and safeties. There's so many different things you can work with here. And like you said, the fact that the tight ends are so active in the run game makes it even more important to go feed those guys. As a basketball player, basketball coach for years, the best thing you can do is give your guys who rebound an open layup. Get them the ball. Feed the guys who are working for you. And so with those guys do put in some good work with some blocking, they're going to get rewarded with a pass. Now, same thing goes with the wide receivers, obviously. That's the old school line. You got to block to get the rock. But there's something different about the tight ends. That tight end group works basically with the offensive line in the running game, and then they also work with the wide receivers in the passing game. And to be able to kind of use them correctly is the secret sauce, I think, for all of football. If I'm a football offensive coordinator, I'm using tight ends all the time because they're some of the most versatile players on your whole team. And the most successful teams, like Utah, will burn you at those tight ends constantly because it's a mismatch. Who's going to guard the tight end? You're going to force your linebacker to do a one-on-one. That's ridiculous. Or you're going to have safeties kind of come up and help. That leaves you over the top for a one-on-one at the corner. So again, it's just like it makes you make a decision on the field, and the tight end's probably the only player in the whole field that's going to be able to make multiple different defenders come to them.
Yeah, I love the tight end. I mean, maybe I'm a little biased because I played tight end in high school, but it's just a fun position to watch, man. And Terrence Ferguson was the number 2 guy in terms of total touchdowns last year. He was a huge target for Bo Nix, and he maybe hasn't been this year, but I think that speaks to the improved depth that they have at the skill positions that they brought in. Tez Johnson, Trayshawn Holden, Gary Bryant seems to be carving out a bigger role this year, especially after getting that reverse last week. So it's been fun to see Will Stein kind of dive into his playbook a little bit more, and I think that'll be something to watch going into Saturday. I'd like to see Bo Nix run a little bit more. I think that would be fun. But at the same time, you don't want to put him in harm's way.
Right. Well, it kind of feels like a little bit when the Justin Herbert year, where they didn't want to run Herbert at all his senior year. And then when they got close to the end, when they needed to get those yards against Oregon State, they ran him. And then when they got him that Rose Bowl, they ran him the whole damn game. He had 3 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, no, and in that Rose Bowl game, I mean, it felt like the rest of the offense completely disappeared, and every time something good happened, it was Justin Herbert just taking it to Wisconsin, and then Jawan Johnson had that big play to seal it at the end.
Right.
But yeah,
still one of the greatest plays of all time. That play was supposed to be some sort of a try to get the defense to jump off sides, and instead they snapped it, and it was totally the wrong thing to do. It's the game on the line. Classic Cristobal. And here it is. And the ball's in the air. And Herbert's like, what the hell am I going to do with this? Looked over. Johnson was open. Just hit him. Johnson just athlete. Go get a first down. Wasn't even intended. Wasn't even part of the script at all. I love the backstory of that play. I can't get enough of that. In the most crucial moment in that year. I mean, can't make that stuff up. Really quickly, Planet Moolah says, what's the meaning behind SCO Ducks? It's let's go Ducks, just shorten.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty self-explanatory.
I thought that was too, but it's all good. Planet Moolah's avatar is a walrus. So,
nice.
You know, the walrus would be like, let's go Ducks.
Oh my God.
It's Maddie says, I can't think of a more balanced offense. Been super fun to see. Yeah, well, you know what's nice about a balanced offense is you usually stay on schedule. You're not behind the chains. You know you can pick up 2 to 5 yards at any time, and you're ready to rumble. I think that's the main thing is that you believe everything's on the table, which is what was frustrating about those first downs or lack of first downs when you needed it was because the offense for the most part was so productive, except for those couple moments when you couldn't get that first down. So again, adds insult to injury a little bit.
And I also think it helps keep your opponents on their toes. You don't know what to expect because you're not favoring, one aspect of the game over the other. And Oregon's been super balanced, like we're talking about here. So I think it's going a long way in terms of just helping Will Stein do what he wants and kind of having those options at his disposal.
What a great question here, Planet Moolah. Would you rather have Vaki or Travis Hunter?
I think I'd go with Travis Hunter. We've just seen so much from him on both sides of the ball, and I think Oregon needs a little bit. I think they need the help more in the secondary than they do. I feel like I just don't know a whole lot about Vaki as a DB. I feel like I've seen more of him as a running back. But like I was saying, I feel like that Utah USC game is the only one that I've really kind of gotten good eyes on. Right. But if you had Travis Hunter and Troy Franklin on the same offense, I mean, that would be insane.
I totally agree. Scott Allen says recruiting sites are not reliable. I crap on the star ratings. The state of Utah is producing good football players. Out of those systems, yeah, kids are receiving offers. Yeah, I mean, they receive offers from schools across the country. I agree. I think there's something to be said about the star rating system that it's not perfect, obviously, but they're trying to do what they can to create an opportunity for guys to be able to see across the country what that same level of football could be. Because obviously the level of football in one state varies greatly to the next state, or from one division of football to the other division, smaller football to the larger schools or whatever. So the fact that they can just create some sort of a system to where you could say, hey, this kid could play with anybody in the country. This kid could play on this team. This kid could play on this team. And that would be they're on the same level. That's something. You got to have something, right? I had a kid this year complain to me and say, I don't like reading out of the textbook. I said, well, the information's got to come from somewhere. He's like, well, if it's so important, why is it in a textbook? And I was like, dude, driving is probably the most important thing in our society. You have a driver's manual. So it's like you're gonna have this stuff. You have to have some sort of a system. I get it. People don't like the system, but you're gonna have to have something to be able to classify who's who.
Yeah, and to this comment, I like I'm really high on the state of Utah and the talent they have coming out of there. I just talked about Roger Saliapaga, and that's a guy that Oregon's in a great spot for, who plays tight end. So even cooler with the conversation we've been having. But Jackson Powers Johnson, Jeffrey Bassa, Sam Taimani, he hasn't really been playing, but Junior Angalau. Oregon likes Utah for sure, and they're going to continue to prioritize that state when it comes to building the future of their team. I think the interesting, story with them is that you typically look there for trench talent, but I think they're showing more and more that they have a lot of talent at other positions.
I agree. Well, they've got the strong Pauly community vibes there in Utah, and not to mention the fact that Utah is a team that, or a state that is growing. There's a lot of people who are moving into Utah, and like where Spencer's at, beautiful down in there, and he's playing golf in the sunshine most days. So again, I think that Utah is kind of changing their demographics a little bit, just like Arizona, just like Colorado. There's other schools out here that are kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, no, they are. So Utah, I think you could put that in Missouri. They're not on the same level necessarily. But that's another state that I know Oregon really likes. And, we talked about Jeremiah McClellan, the Ohio State wide receiver commit. He's from St. Louis. Ryan Wingo, one of the best players in the entire country. He's a 5-star, just committed to Texas. He's out of St. Louis. That was today. Tayon Gray is also from the St. Louis area. So Utah, Missouri, those are some huge states that the Ducks are definitely going to prioritize moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. Derek says he puts in his vote. Let's go Ducks over Ducks. Yeah, I don't need it shortened personally, but I'm not hating on it. It's just another thing. Yeah, Rick says Frost can't recruit to Oregon. I don't think you go backwards on the thing. I think there's an opportunity for Scott Frost going forward, but he also, I think, probably cashed a few checks while he was there at Nebraska. I think he's all right. Two solid teams. Looking forward to this matchup. Oregon make a statement. I totally agree. Pass the rock to Herbert. I absolutely love the Herbert family. My dog's name is Herbert. I named him after the family. He's born in Eugene. So I told that to Patrick. Patrick's like, okay, that's he can tell. He's like, that's a little weird.
I don't know if I would do that, but hey, man, dude.
Yeah, he's like, whatever, dude. Okay. Philip said the tight end's like the bishop in chess. That's a good call.
Nice.
Are you like the bishop in media, sports, Oregon media? Are you like you can do it all?
I mean, I guess I'd like to consider myself in that territory. I'm trying to get better at taking photos, but I write, I podcast.
You're a jack of all trades. You're a Renaissance man, Max.
I'm a multimedia journalist.
Now you're international, dude.
Yeah, hey, I covered signing day last year from Prague, so that was a challenge. That was awesome. Cool.
That's awesome. All right, hey, we've been here an hour. I said an hour. You've got stuff to do. Last couple minutes here. Make sure people tell you, let people know where to find you. We got 86 people in here, where they can find you, what you're up to, what you're doing, and then got to get out of here, get your run club.
Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at mtorresports. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're doing a dual stream on Ryan's and my channel, which is really cool. And I think we're also on both of our Twitter accounts too. So we're everywhere. But you can find me on YouTube at Oregon Football Max Torres. You can read my stuff at ducksdigest.com. I put a huge emphasis on recruiting. That is my absolute passion. That's a huge part of the reason I moved to Southern California. I'm usually going to a top game in Southern California every week. Went to Mater Dei and Orange Lutheran last week to see the newest 5-star commit to Oregon, Aiden Breland, and I saw Jordan Anderson the next day at Newport Harbor. So I get around, man. I go everywhere. And I also, cover a lot of Oregon football, obviously. Technology is pretty cool. You got sources up in Eugene, and then you got press conferences you can write off of. And I got Darby's photos, so he's kind of my boots on the ground where the Ducks are. So I do a little bit of everything, man, and I love it. Really trying to ramp it up. And things are going to get real interesting here with recruiting with all the guys that Oregon's trying to flip and then trying to keep guys in the fold as well. So early signing day, kind of mid-December, it's going to be really interesting. And then I'm heading up to Eugene next Friday for, I guess I'm going to Portland, and then my buddy's going to drive me to Eugene. But I'll be there for the Cal game, and I'm staying there all week to cover the team and then go to the USC game. So get to kind of live the best of both worlds. I can't wait to get back to Eugene, man. I tweeted today I'd love a rainy PNW day. I feel like that would just hit right now. But I'm super fired up. This is a really fun team to cover, and they always give you plenty to talk about.
That's awesome. Before you go, though, we've got one thing from the chat. Derek says, "What's for dinner, Max?" I don't know if I told you this or not, but my live
We were
streams
talking
have gotten
food last time.
yeah, they've gotten a little out of control with the food thing. It was really just in response to the Husky loss. They coming off the Husky loss. All our brains were turned into mashed potatoes. Gravy's pouring out of our ears, and we just couldn't get back to talk about the Ducks as much. We're talking about anything but the Ducks at that point. And then we just start randomly screaming about missing a kick or something else like this. But what do you got on the tap for dinner tonight? I know you got the Run Club. What do you go? You go light? You go carbo load like Michael Scott in The Office?
I think I usually
Parm.
eat chicken parm. I think I usually eat after, but I always hate cooking on the day that we have Run Club.
Right.
But I live right next to a grocery store, so maybe I'm gonna run over there and see if I can get something. Maybe some sushi. I love sushi.
They got the deli there?
And they have a deli there too. So they have a couple of different options. Probably like sushi. I saw pizza here was one of the comments. Maybe I'll get a frozen pizza or something, some salad. But I'm really lazy when it comes to cooking, so I know I can be better. But those are some of the options. Our Run Club is at a pizza place tonight. But it takes a really long time. It's expensive, so I don't think I'm going to be eating there tonight.
Yeah. Well, I'm a sushi guy too. Maybe we can partner up and have some sushi together sometime. That's Darby's number one thing. You know, Dar, man, he's on that action. All right, yo, Max, I appreciate you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stay here. I'm going to give it another maybe 15 minutes or so and let Max get off and get to the Run Club. But yo, can't thank you enough, Max. You know, a lot of love over here for you, man. You're absolutely my favorite guy doing this thing. You do a great job. Can't wait to see you up in Eugene and do your thing up in Eugene. Get some rainy weather for you because I know it never rains in Southern California, right?
It was a little bit gloomy this morning, but now, what do you know? I'm looking at blue skies. I don't know. I'm not one to complain about it, but I just feel like, you know, after living in the PNW for 6 years, I just feel like I'm kind of like on the, you know, sunny skies and beaches in California. It's cool and it has its place, but I don't know. I have a second home up there in the Northwest, you know, whether it's Washington or Oregon.
It's awesome. Well, hey, man, can't thank you enough. And I would love to maybe get us all together on a chat or something if we can put it together. We're going to be there the night before the USC game. We usually don't spend that much time in Eugene, but we will be there that day. That's Veterans Day. There that day. I'll come down early that day. So maybe we can get together that Friday.
Dude, say the word. I'm there.
All right, dude. Appreciate you, Max. Thanks so much again. Check Max out. Ducks Digest, the Ducks, the Ducks Dish podcast, and all the other different places. But I start my day every day with your page, with Zach Neal's page, and then I do the BBC World News. So
there you go.
You're in front of the Ukraine talk.
Good. Right on. Well, I'm glad to be there.
All right, Max. Appreciate you, buddy.
All right. See ya. Thanks Ryan.
So much. Yep. Thank you. All right, y'all. Let's do another maybe 15 minutes. Speaking of frozen pizza, what are your guys' thoughts on frozen pizza? In a pinch, frozen pizza can be okay, I think. I'm not a guy that subscribes to the any pizza is good pizza, but there are some frozen pizzas that I have had that have been okay. All right, let's jump in the chat here really quickly. Looks like we've got two solid teams David's talking about. Hell yeah, this is going to be a great game, man. I can't wait. I'm leaving tomorrow. Oh, baby. Let's go. I think the fun thing about the Ducks schedule this year is looking forward to the back end of it, right? When you see the Ducks schedule and you're like, wow, I can't wait for the Texas Tech game, you know. Well, that's good, and that was awesome. That was fun. That was a good game, and you got that win. God dang, that was close, but got that win. But I was really excited for that Washington, Utah, USC, Oregon State. I'm so excited, but I also don't want it to end. I want it to keep going. Oh, tonight's the first night for the basketball games. Let's go. Blazers, Rip City. Sean's my guy. I give a nod to Sean's. I'm the PA announcer for my high school basketball team. And, it's not really, it's more for radio, obviously. But when I get on the mic, the first thing I say is, hello, wherever you may be. Sean's, baby. Okay. Deli pizza better than frozen. Yeah, I think anything's better than frozen pizza. But again, in a pinch, you're somewhere halfway to nowhere or whatever. I don't know what the deal is. But I've had some. They've got the rising crust or something. I've never even had that. Is that DiGiorno? I've never even I try to go with the basic style, man. I don't try to go too deep in. All right. Derek says, rewatch the Utah USC game. You think you're going to see the Ducks pass all over the guys? I did the same thing. I think the Ducks are going to pass over Utah, and I think the Ducks are going to be able to run the ball and pass the ball over USC. I don't think USC has a chance in hell in stopping this Ducks offense. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I don't think it's anything like that, but I don't think there's in any way, shape, or form going to be any limitation. Let's say from USC. USC's defense is not good. Utah's defense is always good, but Utah has different pieces that they're missing, and I do think you're right. When I watch USC throw the ball, now USC is good. They got the good quarterback. They got good wide receivers, but they were picking Utah apart a little bit. Planet Moolah says, do I think Lincoln Riley is overrated? I think he is overrated, but it's not his fault. It's the media's fault. He has been a coach of a very good team. Oklahoma was great. What was wrong about Oklahoma? Didn't have a defense. Couldn't finish off the season. Couldn't win in the playoffs. Yeah, because you don't have a defense. You get to the end of the year, you're going to have to play some defense. Somebody got to tell him that. USC, what does he have? Great potent offense. Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. Great. Doesn't have a defense. So, yeah, I mean, I think that he's overrated in the sense that he is a complete coach on that level, but no, he's an offensive guy. And I actually think he'll do well in the NFL. Put him in the NFL. Let him have a defensive side on the other side. Let him focus on the offense. Let him cover his face with the paper and when he calls the plays, whatever. Ed P or EDP, either way, 445 says the CFP predictions is Michigan, Florida State, Georgia, Oregon. God dang, I like that. Ooh, I like that. Well, Michigan's going to win that one because they've already spied on Oregon. I didn't know much about the Michigan thing at all. I hadn't done a lot of research on that. I hadn't done a lot of reading on that. First thing I saw when I started, there's a picture of the guy taking a video of the duck. Oh my God. The first thing I see when I just looked up Michigan spying, that was literally the first thing. Oh God. Papa Murphy's cowboy is bomb. Okay. What's on a cowboy pizza? Hopefully not horse. Oh man, what else we got? Why did Bossa choose you over his hometown school? Bossa liked being a Duck. The Ducks recruited him. A lot of guys want to leave the state. I don't blame them. A lot of guys want to leave the state. But yeah, no, he was the number one athlete in the state. How many passing yards versus Utah? Over under 325? Probably under. I would say even if Utah's passing defense isn't that good, it's still all right. Utah is not bad on any part of the defense, right? But yeah, no, I do think that it's probably under. I think it's probably right around 300, maybe just a little under that. What is Bo Nix thrown for all year? Let's look at this. Portland State, he throws for 287. 81 points, 287. Texas Tech went there for 359, but you only scored 38. 249, Hawaii, 55 points. 276, Colorado, huge blowout, 42 points. So he's only thrown over 300 yards twice this season. Washington game was one of them where it felt like he did outshine Penix. And then the Texas Tech game. So maybe this is a situation where the Utah game, you got to be able to throw the ball. That's an interesting thing, man. I hadn't really thought about that. I hadn't really looked into that. It's interesting. Micah Times in here, kind of worried Utah might have better ball control than the Stanford first half. Well, yeah, I think they're going to have better ball control than any part of the Stanford game. But I think that, like what Max was saying, take the air out of the ball if you're Stanford or if you're Utah. Obviously, that's the way to go. Obviously, that's anytime you want to give a potent offense the ball, no. Is there any time in the game? No. If Oregon loses to Utah, they're eliminated from playoff contention. Yeah, I mean, that's how it goes right now. 2 losses, you're out. Yep. One pint pizza is all you can stand. The one bite pizza, the Dave Portnoy, Barstool guy. Yeah, he loves pizza, man. That's his thing. Who's the best coach ever at Oregon? Good question. Probably Chip because he was so revolutionary at that time, but Bellotti was a hell of a coach. Bellotti was a really good coach. Bellotti was a CEO, more CEO type, but he was a hell of a coach. 11-2 should be good enough for Oregon to sneak in the playoffs. I don't know. I don't think this year. I don't think anybody's getting in. I didn't think Oregon would get in with 1 loss before the season started. Now the season is unfolding the way it is, and you can kind of see they have a path to get there with 1 loss. But I didn't even think that. Mark Miller says Lincoln Riley is a Ferrari with a flat tire. I don't think it's that bad. I just think that they're going to go up against the people's best. Everybody's going to want to beat USC. And, Oregon kind of deals with that too. I mean, look at Washington, right? Look at the game Washington played against Oregon. Look at the game Washington played against Arizona State. You telling me that they didn't think the Washington-Oregon game was the bigger game? They weren't hyped up for that game? Come on, man. Come on. Washington Post released an article detailing the Michigan spy stuff. Yeah, I'm going to look into that. I looked into it today a little bit, and it just looks like they are, I've heard a lot of people who say, hey, this is the rule. And then when people break it, they're like, well, should that really be the rule? So I don't know. I don't know what's going to come of this. I heard people talk about possibly a 3-year bowl ban. Okay. I think he's due to rack up some yards. Tyrone Willingham is the best. Oh, my God. Dude, where is Tyrone Willingham now? What is he doing now? He obviously got paid, so he's fine, but wow. Flying pie is the best. Okay. Oh, man. Well, I've got another couple minutes left here. We got 60 people in the building here. Thank you guys so much again for watching tonight. This was a little different one. We did this just because Max had this time today, and we'll get that in. I always like to try to talk to guys in the off season. I don't try to bring in the media guys that much during the regular season, but as of late, there's been an opportunity to be able to do this. I love the live stream. Max Torres is the guy that got me started on the live stream, so shout out to Max on that level as well. But tonight was just a night to break it down a little bit, talk about recruiting a little bit, talk about what the Ducks are doing a little bit, keep it on the on the casual, and let's talk about this game this week. It's going to be an absolute great game. Should be a great atmosphere. I'll see what I can get you guys. I'll try to maybe do a live stream Friday or a live stream. I'll definitely do a live stream after the game. I just don't know exactly what it's going to look like. So kind of stay posted. Stay close if you guys are interested in that sort of thing. It's going to be a fun one, though, either way. Planet Moolah says, do I want Rangers or D-backs? You know what? I really don't care. I historically a heavy baseball fan, and I always was a National League guy. So I always would say, hey, I root for the National League at the end of the year. In this one, the D-backs have already got some World Series. I think I might be pulling for the Rangers on this one. Like I said, I don't really care because both these teams aren't really that interesting to me personally. But it would be a little bit of an interesting thing for the Rangers to be able to cash one in here. Derek says Tyrone Williams is a tighty whitey guy. Well, I don't know about much of Tyrone Willingham other than he coached at some very good schools and really just did not do anything with them. I don't know why he was the guy. Oregon could rank higher than Georgia in the playoffs just because of how unimpressive Georgia's been. True, but they still have the benefit of the doubt. Unless they lose, they're going to be in the thing. And, they might lose to Bama. What happens if Bama loses or Bama wins the Georgia game? And you've got Georgia and Bama sitting there with one loss, and Bama beat Georgia. Would Georgia jump ahead of everybody else's one loss, or would they say, well, Georgia hasn't really been that impressive this year? I tend to think they would jump everybody, and I think they would try to put 2 SEC. Golf in Utah? No, I'm not going to golf in Utah. I'm only there. It's a business trip, right? I'm golfing in Tempe. I'm only there technically for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm Thursday night. I'm there. You know what I'm saying? Unis just dropped. Ooh, I like that. Let's talk about some unis, huh? Let's do some unis. Like that. Bo Nix wins the national championship. Any chance he returns next season? No, he gone. He's done. I don't think he even can return. I think he's done. I think it's over. Correct? Yeah, he can't go. Uni combo doesn't work. This is the uni combo doesn't work, you said. Interesting. So what is the uni combo? Black helmets with the white shirt and the black pants. Yeah, I mean, I guess. Let's share screen here. Let's see what we've got going on here. So it's JJ, which is nice. So he's the guy, right? Doing some conducting. Okay, all right. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really matter. The road game uniform, it's a business look. After last week with the retro unis, everybody's going to be so stoked on the retro unis. I understand why there would be a little bit of a lull here. Not that excited about this. Rick Olson said Ducks might need camo. I think camo uni looks good. I loved the spring game stuff with the camo on there. So Mark Miller says, it's been fun, Ryan. Thank you so much. Let's do this thing. All right, guys, it's been 1 hour, 21 minutes, 25 seconds, 60 people still in the building. I really appreciate y'all. Again, I am going to be here Tuesday nights throughout the whole regular season, live stream 5:30 to 7:30-ish, Tuesday nights all the way through. I'll do some of these if I can every once in a while. But for the most part, what we're doing is just the Sunday videos, a little bit of Monday. I didn't do even a film room this week. I was doing other sort of stuff. So maybe I'll try to get a film room in. I don't know. We'll get that in or not, but exciting times to be a Duck. It's super fun. We'll be out there. The flock will flock up and see what happens. It's going to be a great game. 12:30 start our time. Big Fox. 1:30 their time. It should be a great one, man. I'll be there with bells on. All right, y'all. Let's do this thing. Thank you guys so much for watching. Everybody who was in the chat tonight, man. Joe, digging the Blazers shirt. Let's go Blazers. It's also, it's the Grateful Dead combo. What do you call it? Collab. Grateful Dead collab. There you go. Steal your face. Yeah, it's the Blazers' first game tonight. It's going to be a fun one. But everybody's out in the chat. Let's go. EDP445. Derek, my guy. Queso's in here. Rick Olson, the legend. Philip Juan is in here. Let's go. Mark Millers was in here. Micah Time. Planet Moolah. Oh, man. Scott Allen was in here. What up? David Portnoy's in here. What up, Dave? Hey, did you hear somebody talking about pizza, Dave? McClung was in here. What up? Hey, Flush, my guy. What's up, bro? Flush, I'm telling you, me, you, Derek, we gotta break some bread here, people. What'd you say one time? This time-space continuum or something might be interrupted if we all at the same place at the same time. Oh, Derek, my guy, dude, let's go. But again, Mikey G, what up, Mikey? Scott Allen was in here, like I said before. Brad West, Rick Olson. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate y'all. We'll talk to you guys next time. Again, thank you so much. Go Ducks and be good to people, man.